The meta in Brawl Stars is pretty crazy right now. All these buffies floating around, and the broken new brawlers as well. It makes a bunch of different brawlers feel overshadowed. In this video, I want to focus on 10 brawlers who I think are pretty underrated in the current meta. I'll be focusing on brawlers neither the pros or casuals focus on much, so just because someone has a lower use rate doesn't necessarily mean they're underrated. Take Ruffs for example. He has a low play rate, but he's consistently used in pro play, so I wouldn't consider him too underrated. That makes sense? Good. Now let's get into the list. First up, I have Lumi. Note that these brawlers aren't necessarily in an ordered ranking, but I do think that Lumi is pretty high up there. She seems to be floating around the lower end of C tier in most tier lists I see, and I don't quite agree with that. Lumi may be on the squishier side, but she is a really good tank counter. She can make the enemies flip around with her gadget and start damaging them, add her slow from her star power, and it's really hard to escape her chaining her morning stars on you. Then her super is also extremely easy to hit, and rooting the enemy makes it even easier to approach them and chain up more damage. I think Lumi has a ton of potential, especially with all these tanks around the top of the meta. Put her in the hands of a good player and she can do extremely well against these brawlers. Then there's Meg. She's another brawler who I obviously find to be extremely underrated. Despite being able to tank, I think she's a great damage dealer. Enemies can't get close to her without being shredded by her attack, and if they have somehow enough health to tank through it all, she can use a super to finish them off anyway. Then having 2 lives makes her insanely unique as well. If the enemy somehow has enough health and can do enough damage to kill her in her mech form, she still has her base form and she can knock the enemies back using her star power too, letting her either escape easily or finish off the weakened enemy with her small shot. And getting her super back isn't even too hard, letting her go back to that form quickly as well. The fact that nobody plays her still is insane to me. How are you not going to play with someone who essentially can revive themselves immediately after dying? Doug at least needs a super to do that. Meg can do that without even needing to press a single button. Ziggy is another brawler I'd call underrated, although I'm not too sure how much that fits him nowadays considering I see literally everyone calling him underrated. Doesn't mean that label still doesn't fit though. He definitely needs to be used by higher skilled players in order to get value, as you need to be really good at predicting enemy movement, but if you are, you can get a lot of damage with him. And then either star power can be used to help him deal even more bonus damage. Although super doesn't necessarily get a connection too often, it's not supposed to deal damage. It's supposed to be used to keep enemies away, kinda like a squeak super. But Ziggy controls even more area for a really long time, doubling with his hypercharge super. Ziggy is a high skilled brawler, so I wouldn't recommend him if you're a newer player, but if you're skilled, he's a great choice to use in the game. Don't worry if you're a newer player though, there's another brawler on this list who also works. Lou is a brawler I'm surprised at even putting on this list. I thought he was pretty well rated before, but looking at his use rates, a 0.4% is pretty low, and I don't see him that often in pro play either. Obviously, he's a pretty great brawler. He's got a fast reload speed, a game-breaking super, and an even more busted hypercharge. And then a main attack letting you stun the enemy without a gadget, star power, or anything. And then the super isn't even hard to charge, it's even easier to cycle. Lou's attacks may be hard to hit, but they provide a ton of value, and it makes him an extremely broken controller as well. I'm surprised he's not super popular due to how easily he can noob stomp enemy brawlers. Then Ash is another brawler I'm surprised doesn't get enough love. He's such a fun brawler, at least for me, and he kinda has Surge's levels as a trait, but they're infinitely easier to get, and although temporary, increases damage and speed by a significant amount. Then of course as a tank, he has a bunch of health on top of that, and as well, his rats let him also counter single shot brawlers with ease. He's also got a good amount of range for a tank as well. Yeah, he has a small windup, but it's barely an issue. I wish I had more to say about Ash, but he's just generally a great and fun brawler to use. There's a ton you can do with him, and I find him to be one of the most versatile tanks in this game. Past the halfway point, let's talk about RT. I think RT is in a pretty stable spot on pro play, but the fact that he is so unpopular in casual play is genuinely insane to me. He full counters any brawler with a dash or something like that, like Mortis, Miko, or Ali. And the rest of the assassins and close range brawlers don't fare that much better against RT either. Then the fact that his hypercharge has barely been touched despite how broken it is insane. Then having a gadget that gets you a free super without any disadvantage like Buzz is also extremely crazy as well. What does a Miko do if he's in a 1v1 in duels or knockout and RT has a super? Exactly, nothing. I haven't even mentioned his mark yet, which lets any attack do over 1,000 extra damage, and all he needs to do is hit an attack in either form. RT is honestly the most underrated brawler on the list when it comes to casual play. he's generally way too unnoticed for how fun and broken he truly is. You know how I said Ziggy was for higher skilled players? Well, Willow is a great choice if you want someone who isn't as skillful but is still insanely underrated. Hitting her attack is really easy and you only need to hit it 4 times to get her super, which is another feature I think isn't talked about enough. If you possess someone in Brawl Ball, you can get a free goal with them if you're close enough to the goal, and if you possess the right brawler, you can easily kill the enemy team and make it a 3v1 as well. Yes, her super is pretty hard to hit, but if you know for a fact that you can get a hit on the enemy with it, it's so worth it to use. Even if no enemies are around, you can still waste their ammo and make them stay away from you to help you escape or kill them yourself. Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of Willow's super in concept, but its existence is what makes her crazy. Pam is a brawler who's pretty much known for being forgotten at this point, yet she's still really good. Her attack is wide and hard to dodge, and then combine her mythic gear with her super, and that's one of the best and most consistent forms of healing in the game, especially in a 1v1 setting. You can keep your distance and stay around your super, and whenever the enemy hits you, you can just out-heal them because her healing is insane. 1200 healing per second is crazy. In just 4 seconds, you get more healing than in Poco's super. And her hypercharge makes that even better by adding an overshield on top of all of it. Her gadget is also crazy, and since nobody plays Pam, it honestly makes Pam even better since they're caught off guard as she steals all their ammo, making it extremely difficult for them to get out of the situation alive. She's above average in every single category, so that also makes her versatile as well. Too bad most people find her boring, as she does have a ton of potential, it just goes unnoticed. Second to last pick goes to Pearl. She's got a similar role to Pam, although she's more focused on dealing damage while Pam is more focused on healing. Pearl's gadget also catches enemies off guard and deals an insane amount of damage to them, plus the extra burn damage it deals. Her super then makes it difficult for any enemy to get close, and although her hypercharge is infamous for being really bad, she doesn't need it once you have the rest of her kit. Although it's not as consistent now thanks to a buff she received, funnily enough, she can also get an almost permanent 20% shield using a star power, which makes her fit the role of a tank more than damage dealer, funnily enough. Pearl often goes unnoticed, and I think that's a shame. She's fun and can act as 2 different roles at once, so hopefully she'll get her time to shine at some point. Then the final brawler on the list is going to be Trunk. You think Trunk would be a lame or cheesy brawler like Jackie or Doug looking at their attack, but nope. Trunk is actually a really good tank, and they're also an extremely underrated pick if it wasn't obvious by them being on the list. Trunk has a ton of health, a super that dashes but also deals a lot of damage, and a main attack that, although easy to hit, has a slight skill ceiling to it thanks to the critical hit spot. I'm honestly really glad they included that, as it makes Trunk actually feel skillful. Plus, those pulls that makes Trunk stronger and faster, they last for a super long time. Trunk may not be the greatest tank out there, but they fit their niche extremely well, having great movement and damage, and also having a ton of health that makes it extremely hard to take them down, and that also makes them one of the better brawlers overall in my opinion. But with that, that's my list of the 10 most underrated brawlers. What do you think? Do you think Edgar, Mortis, and Dynamite are actually the underrated brawlers? Do you think some of these brawlers are actually overrated? Tell me in the comments. I'll leave a link to a website in the description that gives brawler use win rates if you're curious to how I found some of these percentages. And with that, thanks for watching, and consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, as every subscriber means a lot to me, and it'd help out the channel as well. Tune in for the next video, and I'll see you guys later.